Due Date started with just a pitch, a kind of simple pitch. It's a real simple idea, two guys go on a two kind of mismatched guys that are forced to go on a road trip together, and I respond to movies always just by casting potential, and I just thought, having just worked with Zach on The Hangover, and having always wanted to work with Robert Downey. I mean, he's one of the best actors out there. I thought immediately, putting those two guys together. So I always respond, it's not so much the idea, and maybe it's a mistake, but I always respond to the casting potential. And I start seeing the movie through the eyes of this casting it. And so quite honestly, I said to myself, man, if I could get Robert and Zach for this idea, let's just go full out and rewrite and do all those things you have to do to get it going. So Robert said yes, and we pitched him the idea of being with Zach, and Zach said yes, and so that's really how it went really fast. Due Date is about, Robert Downey plays Peter Hyman, who can't get back to LA from Atlanta, and his wife is giving birth, and he's been put on a no-fly list. And he kind of hitches a ride with Zach Galifianakis, so to speak. They both end up in a car together, and it's kind of the story about two mismatched personalities. It's also, in an odd way, about fatherhood. It's about Robert Downey's impending fatherhood and Zach, who's dealing with loss of his own father. I think Robert saw it as a challenge. I think Robert is naturally very funny, and he's certainly been funny in movies like Tropic Thunder, and but he to do a straight up comedy, a buddy comedy like this, it was I was anxious and really pleased when he said yes. But I think, he saw The Hangover, he knew my films, and certainly when he met Zach, I remember Zach and I went over to his house for dinner, and that was where he kind of came on board. I think Zach and I really clicked because Zach knows I really get his comedy. I think Zach's been in other films, certainly even before The Hangover, but it's a really tough thing to capture a comedian's tone, and I think that's one of my strong suits as a director, if I did have one. It's like understanding why Will Ferrell's funny and putting him in old school, understanding what makes Zach special and using that in The Hangover. So I feel like Zach gets that I get it with him, so I think he feels comfortable. So I think I could have went to Zach with any numerous ideas, and he would have responded probably, but certainly with the idea of putting him and Robert Downey. Zach's as big a fan of Robert's as I am and as everybody is, so he really was excited. By the trailer, which is the only thing that's been out there right now, people tend to think, it's Alan from The Hangover on the road with Iron Man. But Ethan Tremblay is a much more complicated character because Alan is, for all intents and purposes, a moron. He's a bit slow and a bit, Ethan is actually much more complicated, and Ethan's going through a trauma in his life and having just lost his father, who was basically his best friend. And he's really searching for something. So I don't know, it's hard to explain Ethan Tremblay. You see the movie and you get it, but he's a very complicated, very lonely, and very warm character. I think it would be bad to take Robert Downey and cast him as the straight man. I think what makes Due Date special is there's not really a straight man in it. They're both kind of in different ways. Robert's under a tremendous amount of stress, having his first child and trying to do it the right way, and having had his own father issues that we find out through the movie. You realize he doesn't want to do it that way. But there's a thing in comedies, everybody always says chemistry, it's this chemistry between these two actors is why this movie works, and Wedding Crashers is great because of the chemistry with Owen and Vince. This movie's kind of about anti-chemistry in a weird way. The movie works because of there is zero chemistry between Robert and Zach's characters in the film, and it's that sort of butting heads and that tension that we get a lot of the comedy from. You have certain tools as a director, you have music, you have cinematography, you have all these sort of tools that are available to you to tell a story, and the biggest tool is casting. And as you attract talent like Robert, or as you've done, bigger movies like The Hangover, you're able to get a guy like Jamie Foxx and say, hey, it's only a 2-day part, but we'd love to have you, it'd be fun. And again, I always think at their core, actors like to play, it's what they do. If Jamie Foxx happens to be in town and available that week, why not do it? So we reached out to Jamie Foxx. We have Juliette Lewis, who's been in a number of my movies, who I love, and I think is probably the funniest woman out there. We have Danny McBride, who came in and did a day as a, these are kind of favors and kind of also at the same point, it's what they do, it's what they like to do. So, and I think for an audience, it's just sort of exciting to see, it's fun to see Danny McBride stop in for a scene. I think the thing about road trips that work for me in a movie is that essentially you take your characters and they're traveling without a net. And there's something about when a movie takes place in your hometown and it's like shit goes crazy, you still have the semblance of safety, whether it's at home or at work or, in your life, there's the familiarity of things to ground it. And I think there's something about being on the road, there's a recklessness to it. And again, you're just traveling without a safety net. And people are coming in and out of your lives. It's why Jamie Foxx is in the movie for only that short beat, or Juliette Lewis and Danny McBride. You're able to meet a cast of characters, but then they just sort of dissipate behind you as you travel on. So it's always an interesting setting for a comedy to take your guys and just throw them out into the elements and be like, deal with it.